Different's great, but being different for the sake of being different, I'm not a big fan of, right? If you just want to be different for the sake of
technology increased, I would hide behind it.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Master Connector Show. I'm your co-host, Rob Genovesi, and we hope you're joining us every single Wednesday here, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, because we're always going to be bringing you tremendous value, amazing guests, and lots of insights from people's experiences, their stories, their skill set. They're going to give it to you to help you level up, because that's the name of the game. It's about creating those connections, creating a community of people who can help you raise your game. We got an amazing show today. I'm really excited for this guest. A little last minute change, but I couldn't be more excited. The show today is conquering the voices in your head. And I'm going to tell you something. That's got to be one of the biggest game changers that is really not talked about a heck of a lot. And I know those voices have gotten me in the past. So I'm excited to hear from our guest about how to conquer those. Listen, we want you to be a part of the show. Interact with us. This is not sit here and watch a television show. This is show you love, comment, like, share this out with people. You got something good, you make sure you want to share it and let us know where you're tuning in from. We love to hear people from all around the country and all around the world even, because we want to know where we're reaching to, who's hearing the message, and maybe you can pass it on. If you have questions for our guests or for us, put them in the comments. We'll be happy to answer any questions. This is not a show for us. This is a show for you. And my co-host, Steve, and I, we do this because number one, we love meeting amazing people. And number two, we want to bring these people to you and we want you to connect with them so you can build your network, your community of people who are going to help. You know, Steve and I, Steve Spiro, we go back 26, 27 years, two former shy guys, two introverts who overcame the shy part. And here we are hosting a show. We are connectors, but he is the master connector. Help me bring him to the show, Mr. Steve Spiro. What's up, Steve?
What's up, Robbie G? How you doing, sir? Great seeing you as always, and amazing. Just super excited here to be here. And yeah, you're right. Last minute switch, but we are pumped. But what's going on, everyone? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. And this is going to be an incredible show. I got to say, I don't know about you guys, but I grew up in a place where I was really broken. I was wounded. I had gotten picked on, bullied. I had a lot of rejection in my life. And just was not the typical successful, outgoing person that, could succeed in the world. And a lot of voices in the head, voices from outside, those external voices started to influence the internal voices, the voices in my head. And, when I'm going in, I remember going up to a girl that I had a crush on as a kid and asked her out, and she said flat out no. And I mean, just, my mom, who, I was the youngest, and she had, she decided to go for a secondary education. And all of a sudden the mom that was available was locked up in a room and I never got to see her. And there was some rejection there, and a dad that was literally, working all the time and never took sick time vacation. And I didn't have a really relationship with my dad, never came to any kind of ball games. And so just never grew up where, like a lot of people do. And maybe if you're listening to this, maybe your life was worse. But I really started to create this self-doubt, this belief that I wasn't worthy. And it took a long time, took a lot of self-development. It took a mentor in my life that started to pour into me. And it took a lot of books. I've read numerous books. In fact, the book I'm reading right now is Brene Brown, Daring to Be Great, phenomenal book on vulnerability and just incredible. And I know I like on stage speaking about, being authentic and vulnerable as well. But she does a great job with it. But, and she also talks about the voices in your head. So it's going to be such an appropriate conversation today, but it's just amazing. But as I grew and as I started to build me up, and I've learned that you can't pour into others if your cup is empty. So I started to grow and become, I was challenged, right? The martial arts helped a lot, gave me some confidence, right? Double black belt, as you probably know, 4th degree in karate, 1st degree in traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu. No, it's not the BJJ MMA stuff, but it's still cool, right? And I started to develop some of that. I opened an advertising company. That was another piece of success. But ultimately, I didn't really believe that I could actually be around people and had value. My best friends growing up were Captain Kirk from Star Trek and Ralph Cramden from The Honeymooners and Felix Unger from The Odd Couple. Those were my friends because I locked myself in my room because I didn't think I was worthy. But as I grew and I started to become a new version of myself and started breaking those barriers and started to become others focused and starting to be authentic and share those vulnerabilities, those insecurities, things started to change. And I started to see that people opened up too. And that really was a game changer. And then as I've really focused lately now on absolutely impacting people, it really has made the biggest difference. Because when you start to hear people give you feedback, positive feedback about who you are, it really, really does change how you feel about yourself. And there's a lot more. We're going to dig in deep on this, but I wanted, for those who haven't heard some of my story, why don't you hear a little bit about it? But again, this story is not, this show's not about my story. It's good. It's really, as Rob said, it's about you. We want to bless you. We want to impact you, and so make sure you pay attention, get in the comments, let us know you're here. But I am incredibly blessed to have Rob as a co-host here and a partner here with this amazing show. So I'll bring him on, Bob. If you're ready, type in the comments, hashtag let's go. And I'm going to have my man, Rob G, bring up our incredible guest. Rob G.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Hey, everybody. Listen, going to be an amazing show today. We're very excited. Listen, Marty Strong is a retired Navy SEAL combat veteran and CEO. He's a motivational speaker and an author of, get this, 9 novels and 3 business leadership books. He recently launched his latest book, Be Different: How Navy SEALs and Entrepreneurs Bend, Break, or Ignore the Rules to Get Results. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Marty Strong. What's up, Marty?
Hello, Rob. How's it going, Steve?
Marty.
How you doing? Thank you for coming.
Good.
Absolutely. We first of all, thank you for your service. I know we talked about that already, so appreciate that. Number 2, it's funny because as Rob alluded to, we had a last minute cancellation. It's crazy, and like 2 days ago, and first person that came to my mind. I mean, we're lined up all the way to December of this year, and you were booked out to December, but I'm like, let's get Marty on here, right? Like, and I figured he's been SEAL operations, right? If you're gonna we were talking about that on the show. We even had some technical stuff, right? But just somebody to just jump in last minute, and we're just absolutely blessed. And I don't want anyone to think that this is a last minute thing or he was already scheduled, but we're just super honored to have you on the show. So Marty, thank you. Welcome to the show. Great to have you here, sir. Absolutely. So
thanks for asking. And I'm always on perpetual standby.
Absolutely. I love that. I love it. So let's dig into it. We're going to community. And by the way, welcome Yolanda. Of course, we love and appreciate having Yolanda on the show. She says, let's go. And she's welcoming you, Marty, as well. But let's get into it. Right. So let's type in hashtag humility. Right. And this is a little bit, it may come across a bit of a contradiction to our show here and our topic title of, conquering the voices in our head. But we're going to talk about it. So here's the question for you, Marty. How does intellectual humility open the door to creativity and growth?
So, the topic, conquering the voices in your head, involves looking at risks and the way your mind addresses risks, and also whether or not your mind decides to transition from these elements being risks to being fears. And so the mind's always in a state of doing this, right? So if you think about basic decision making, you have a challenge in front of you. You could be personal, professional, you could be a leader or not even a leader, but you've got a new challenge that's been put in front of you. What most of us have been taught is that you put your best foot forward, which is you leverage all your experience and you leverage all the information you have, and then you go ahead and apply it. The problem is the way the universe works, it's in a constant state of change and flux. And if you have that fixated kind of linear approach, in other words, what I learned in college, what I learned 5 months ago in a deal, what I think the universe is all about, what I think my market, my competitors, my business is all about, what I think my products or services are doing, what I think my family's doing, or the state of their happiness or lack thereof. That's in your mind, but it can be completely inaccurate. And you have that as kind of baggage that you carry into that decision when you look at a challenge. Now, make it even simpler. Let's say you just finished 7, 8 months. You got a bonus for being a top player in the organization. Maybe you won the you won the lottery. You finally got the car you always wanted. It's all these positive things, right? You're going to come into a decision making moment a little bit arrogant, not because you are arrogant, but because you've got all these positive events and all these wins reinforcing that your experience and your knowledge is sound and you can apply it to almost anything. So arrogance can really get you in trouble if you don't look at the facts in front of you. And if the facts are changing all the time, you need to be looking at the facts in real time, right? The other aspect of the baggage is the negative side. So in the last 6 to 8 months, you lost your girlfriend, got a divorce, you wrecked your car, you lost money in the stock market, you were demoted, or you didn't get the promotion you wanted. So now you're carrying all this negative baggage into the decision too. So now you're reluctant to make a call. You're hesitant. So these are both psychological aspects of our minds that we carry into every moment of every day. So to be intellectually humble, what you have to do is you have to clear your mind of these two different aspects, both the positive and the negative, so that you truly have an open mind to look, listen, and learn the true facts on the ground, the reality of the situation as it's explained to you, and also to search for maybe other sources and insights of information rather than the regular go-to people or resources that you normally access.
Marty,
That's
would
the
you
only way you
say
can truly get an open mind.
that would be the emotions that we have to control? Because it sounds like that would be really tough if you get emotional in the situation. You're saying remain objective. Is that what we're saying?
I'm saying that's the way to convert yourself from being emotional to being objective. So think if you're an Olympic athlete and you're in the process of going through the different rounds, heading towards the medal round, and you screw up. It's clear you screwed up. It's on the screen. Everybody sees you screw up. And the commentators know what the emotional impact is of that in the moment and in every moment after that. Does a professional athlete, does a high caliber Olympic athlete or leader or person address the failure, put it in its place, clear their mind, and then execute according to a plan based on the new reality? And that's what we expect of top caliber performers. And usually top caliber performers can do that. They can set aside that. In this case, I'm talking about a very recent failure. If you're, say, a downhill skier and you messed up one of your runs, but that's something that is achievable, and it's a way for your psychology to kind of get past the emotional initial reaction, not let that weigh in and color and give you counsel as to what you should be doing next, and then modify your behaviors in a negative way.
You're on mute, Steve.
Yeah, not to get too much into it. I'm sure that there's probably things you may not want to speak about, but as a SEAL, right? I've seen Lone Survivor, I've seen some of the other shows, and I know that only gives you a piece of what it's like. You've seen, you guys, you warriors out there. You're like, you got shot 16 times, and you're still coming at them, right? You're not looking at yourself. Oh man, right? Like, maybe a limb is gone, but you're still going, right? And it's just looking at the situation, obviously from a day-to-day perspective, a lot of times it's the things that we had. And you mentioned the Olympics. I remember, and I might be dating myself a little bit, but it was Greg Louganis, right? I mean, I think he hit his head on the
diving platform, right?
The platform, because apparently prior to that, he was watching some footage and he watched it, and that image, that voice in his head got in his head, and boom, he recreated it in a way. So just, having that ability to clear the mechanism, if you will, is incredible. And I've worked on it. I can't say I'm perfect at it, but it's definitely something that's worthy of doing. I just want to take this further a little bit on and talk about like the topic, on the topic here of voices, right? So community, type in #voices, and it kind of relates, I believe. So what's the most effective way to silence, the negative voices in your head and shift your focus. So maybe we could dig into this a little bit, right? If you could.
Sure. So this isn't just a theory. I actually lived this both as a guy going through the SEAL selection course, trying to become a SEAL, going through all the exercises they put you through to try to weed out the weak, and then later on as a SEAL, and then later on as a father and as a business leader. I've run into situations where I am not the expert. I don't know a lot, and therefore the normal psychology of any human brain is, what is it that I don't know, and what are the risks associated with what I don't know? Now, at that point, when I mentioned this earlier, you're having an internal analytical conversation. But if you allow that conversation in your mind to start to become kind of a council of fearful voices, if you start letting your lack of confidence, maybe it's based on lack of understanding or knowledge of what you're looking at, creep in there, next thing you know, and this happens pretty quickly. Most people that are hearing what I'm saying probably can pull up a couple examples themselves. Next thing you know, you're walking around with this voice, this narrative going on in your head saying, you probably shouldn't do this. You probably can't achieve this. It's probably not going to be good for you. You probably have to call 5 other people to see what they think. You're diffusing responsibility for the decision. And let's just assume that it's something you really intently want to do. It's a goal that you want to achieve. And this is an objective or an obstacle between you and achieving that goal. So you've got some stake in moving forward and behaving like you want to complete that goal or objective. But yet, like when I was in the SEAL selection course, standing there as an 18-year-old kid, those voices are going on, and I'm not sure I can take another step. I'm not sure I can swim another mile. I'm not sure I can carry that boat any further. And at some point, I decided I want to get to the end of this. I want to get to the end of today. So I would just make a short. Most guys that have been through this kind of stuff will say, you can pick the next hour. You can pick this particular training evolution, or you can get to lunch. But you pick a point on the landscape and you say, I'm just going to get to there. That's my immediate objective. And you blow those voices out of your mind, which also clears your mind. You become more objective and you start doing what you have to do, one behavior at a time. Now, I came back 8 years later and I was an instructor of that same process. The first 9 weeks of SEAL training, I saw hundreds of people going through this. I counseled hundreds of guys that wanted to quit, and I listened to their reasons for why they quit. And it wasn't until maybe 10 years later when I had parents and friends asking, what kind of advice can you give my son? He wants to be a SEAL, or he's got orders to go to SEAL training. What kind of advice can you give him? That's kind of when it all coalesced, and I said, you need to tell them to not listen to the voices in their head.
Mm.
You need to tell them to focus on the prize and dominate their own narrative. And as soon as they start hearing those voices, first, push them out. Second, go find somebody who's a confident, upbeat person in the class, in the group, and get close to them and associate with that aura, with that energy, that positive energy. Now, if that person starts to stumble and starts to wander and starts to think second thoughts, get the hell away from them.
Wow.
And find somebody else, because it's contagious, right? Whether it's somebody who's upbeat and taking each moment with a smile on his face, or whether somebody sees, the whole world's falling apart and they're just a sad sack. You got to stick with the happy people and stay away from the sad people. And that helps reinforce your own exercise in your mind of keeping those voices at bay.
And I just want to, reinforce what Marty's saying to our audience. I couldn't have noticed this stuff. And look, I'm nowhere where I want to be in life. It's all a journey, right? But I came from a place where I was like, Steve and I go back. I always say, if you saw a video of us 26 years ago, you'd be like, these guys, you pray for them because you think they're never going to make it in life. So we've read tons of books. I've read a lot of books from people in the military, business leaders, corporate CEOs, the mindset. And what I came away, and what I'm reinforcing about what you're saying, Marty, is that anytime I had the voice in my head that was like, this is just too hard, what I noticed after a while was my brain stopped looking for the solution, for the options, for the energy to go forward. It's almost like that voice, if you listen to it, it will shut you down, even though you could go on further. Your body can take it. You could find the option. You could find the solution, but it shuts it down. So what you're saying is get around people who will be another voice to replace that negative voice, because really right on the other side of your doubt, right, is success, or at least the next winning point. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, mantras, affirmations, having a plan of disciplined behaviors that become habits. That's what you step into when you clear those voices out of your mind. You say, okay, I've got a plan, I've got an objective, I've got a railway track to where I want to go. I know the direction, I know the value at the end of it. I've already decided that's what I want to do, what I want to be, what I want to attain. And once you clear the voices out of your mind, you just take a deep breath and you start taking that step forward on your plan. And I'm saying it happens frequently. It's a human trait. I showed up at SEAL Team 2 so I graduated from SEAL training. 126 guys started, 13 of us graduated. So I was an 18 and a half year old, 128 pound guy who looked like I was 11 years old. I go to Army Jump School. I show up at SEAL Team 2. I walk in the front door, and the first three guys I meet look like NFL middle linebackers. And they call the operations officer to come down to see what just walked in the door. And they think it's a joke. They think somebody's putting them on. And he walks in, looks at me, and he says, "Who are you? And where are you? What are you doing here?" And I handed my orders over, and I said, I just graduated. I mean, talk about the voices in my head. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like half the size of these guys. And I went right back, right like normally anybody would. I wasn't cocky or so sure of myself. I said, I don't belong here. I actually said that in my head. It's standing there, right? Now, I thought that was a big emotional event. That operations officer that came out there eventually became the SEAL of all the admiral of all the SEALs. And he was at my retirement ceremony, and he told that story, which still didn't make me very happy because he had to describe me as an 11-year-old coming in. But the thing is, here I had achieved graduation with those odds and that kind of attrition, got through Army Jump School, and I showed up and I was smacked right back down psychologically. And in my head, I'm saying, I'm not worthy. I shouldn't be here. So I could give you 30 different examples as I went through life, starting with UBS as a financial analyst, and then eventually a portfolio manager. I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know how to, and the same stuff creeps in, right? So it's not that you can't, it's not that they never happen. The voices will always be there, especially if you're starting something new, but you don't have to listen to them.
Yep. I gotta say, I can relate now. Obviously, I'm not comparing what I've done to anything close to SEALs, but so early on, before I did the martial arts, I wound up doing tennis. I was pretty serious about tennis, and I was technically decent, but I had the horrible head game. And you want to talk about voices in my head? Like, I was like, oh, like, okay, what if I lose this point, or what's going to happen? Like, oh, it was crazy. So fast forward, I get into the martial arts, and I start understanding and training and working. We weren't like Buddhists or anything or in Zen, but there was a lot of Zen Buddhism kind of in there, where you're in the moment and you don't, I learned about Mushin, which is a Japanese word for no mind. And it's actually, if you watch the movie The Last Samurai, you actually see a piece of that when his translator kind of sidekick guy says, hey, no mind, too many minds, right? So I blocked it out, and I was up against Marty. I was up against guys that were way bigger than me. Some of them that had been training for a lot longer, and it was crazy, but I passed them all. And what I did was I tried to block out the voices in my head. I stayed focused on the activity. I tried to just, if I was throwing punches, I tried to be the most all out, balls to the wall, excuse the expression, puncher at everybody, whether anyone was looking at me or not. And that was my focus. And I blocked those negative voices out, and ultimately, became very, very successful at it. So what you're saying works, whether you're a SEALs guy, business guy, anything, right? For sure.
Yeah, I've also been martial arts most of my life, and about 8 years after I retired, I decided to take Muay Thai, and I did private lessons because I could get the time and everything. And the guy who was going to train me was a strike coach for Dillashaw in UFC, and he mixed a little bit of boxing with the Muay Thai, but he wanted to do an assessment of me. So we get out there, I'm trying to hit pads and stuff, and I don't know how to do good kicks or anything. Then we went into kind of light free sparring, and I could not keep from getting hit in the face. And I mean, I'd get hit in the face, then I'd make my move, that kind of thing. My feet wouldn't move. I had stupid, I called them stupid feet. They wouldn't move. I'd see stuff coming and it's like, ah. And I was working out, I was training, I was doing, Orange Theory, I was doing all kinds of stuff. So I was fit. And he wasn't even hitting me that hard. So I come home and that night I've got green and blue and purple bruises on the sides of my thighs from being kicked. And one eye's a little bit dark. And my wife's like, you got to quit. You can't do this. This is ridiculous, because I wanted to get to the level of a black belt, which is going to take me about 3 years.
Yeah.
And those voices were in my head all that evening and the next morning because it was hard to get out of bed. I mean, I didn't realize how beat up I was. And that was light sparring, just a test. So I think, and I ended up staying and I ended up getting to, what's considered a level of a black belt in Muay Thai. It took me 3.5 years. And eventually, about a year later, I finally tagged the guy one time. And then after we were done that day, we sat down on the mat and he looked at me and he said, Mr. Strong, I'm going to have to deal with you in a completely different way today because today you became a fighter. Now, remember, I was a SEAL and I was in Shotokan and Taekwondo and all kinds of crazy stuff. So in my head, I thought, this is the baggage. I thought, hey, I'll do okay at this.
Yeah.
And it took me a year to do okay at that. So yeah, it happens
So
everywhere.
True. For sure. We could go on and on the martial arts. We would have people come in that were incredible shape, big muscle guys. And it was so funny. By the end of our class, they were like vomiting. They were like, and so it's not the size. What's the phrase? It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog, right? That's what it's all about, right? And that's what it is, right? I'm short. I'm a short guy. I'm a little stocky these days, but back then I was, not super big. But it's just, again, it's the mindset thing. Well, we're getting to the end of the show. I want to squeeze in one more question if we can, and we're kind of touching on it a little bit. And it's on the topic of success, right? This is a business type podcast and show. So here's the question, Marty. As we wrap up, why do so many people fall for the linear success fallacy, and how can they break free from it?
So the way I define the linear success strategy or fallacy is that you can call it the American dream, but it's not really the American dream. It's what everybody thinks is the right series of steps in a linear way. Keep your nose clean as a kid, get good grades in high school, get a good college, get good grades in college, get a good job. Yep. Keep your nose clean, get promoted, buy a house, do all those kind of things. So parents buy into that because they have to have some kind of a plan. But in reality, when you look at people that have really been successful, I mean, truly successful and happy and successful, you'll find that a lot of them did a completely non-linear path to where they are. And there's lots of people in history, Ulysses S. Grant was failed in a lot of different ways. President Truman failed in a lot of different ways, and they both ended up being presidents of the United States. And so, failure and trying one thing and not being able to do it is maybe the first linear step, and it doesn't work out. You have to keep an open mind, back to this humility thing, and say, what is it that I want to do? What is it that didn't work out and what I thought I wanted to do? And not believe that I have to be on this particular track that somebody said I have to be on. Especially in the United States, if you live 70 years from the time you're 20 years old, you can have 5, 10-year long professional careers in totally different areas. Yeah. Or you could have, 10 5-year careers.
Yep.
And that's really what I talk about. You need to free yourself from this idea that there's a linear path, that the linear path is the only path. Because most successful people, most of our big titans of technology, they dropped out of college. They didn't do what their parents wanted. They quit. Right. And they went off and they chased what their dream was, whether it was software or whether it was, a laptop on every desk, whatever the plan was. So that's what I really am referring to.
I love it. That's great. Well, this has been tremendous. Make sure, Marty, tell them maybe for a minute about your book. Tell them about best way to reach you, and then we're going to close this puppy down.
Sure. So the 3 business books are in the B series. There's Be Nimble, Be Visionary, and Be Different. The latest book that came out in December was Be Different. It's about creativity, innovation. All my books, including my novels, can be accessed through martystrong.com. You go there, they're all on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all the rest of them, but martystrong.com, it'll lead you to that and my speaking programs.
Awesome. We really appreciate you having on. You've been a blessing, and just excited to just get to know you and collaborate some more. Marty, we're going to have you go in the green room as we shut things down. Hopefully you join us in a moment. But anyway, appreciate you big time, sir. Thank you again. All right. Awesome. Well, good stuff. Well, hey, what incredible, man. Make sure you connect with Marty. So next week, folks, we have an incredible show. Another one, right? I mean, we're bringing these at you big time with David Woods Barley, from crisis to opportunity. It's going to be incredible. Don't miss it. Same bad time, same bad channel. A week from today, the 12th, episode 202. It's crazy as we progress here, now moving towards 300 episodes, right? As we go forward here. But listen, and by the way, if you're interested in learning what some of the upcoming episodes are, go to masterconnector.show. You could also go there to learn more about being a sponsor of our show, like we've had our buddy Russ Hedge do. So make sure you go to masterconnector.show and learn more. But I want to close it down with a story, right? And we all know Brene Brown. I told you I was reading her book right now, the Daring to Be Great. But Brene Brown battled intense self-doubt and fear of judgment before stepping into the spotlight, nearly canceling her now viral TED Talk on vulnerability because the voices in her head told her that she wasn't good enough. Instead of giving up or giving in, she embraced the discomfort, leaned into her research, and delivered a talk that has since inspired millions to embrace courage over perfection. By conquering her inner critic, she transformed her work into a global movement, proving that true strength comes from embracing vulnerability, not avoiding it. Folks, let's make sure to be vulnerable. Let's clear those voices in our head. Let's make sure to move forward in life and ultimately be the light. God bless. We'll see you next week.
And you start to hear some of their challenges. And yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you.